it away.
Brilliant. Evening all. It's a little strange talking to a blank screen or some people here who can't see or I can't see them. But I must say, any questions anytime throughout, just chuck them in. Or if you want to do things at the end, then we can do that. I'm super relaxed and hope for an interesting little run through. If I share this, can you then all see? We all good here? Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. We're a relatively new business on the scene in the grand scheme of agriculture. With Yagro, we've been going for about 5 years now. So we're but a little youngster when compared to the century-old farming families, etc., that exist. And when we're talking with Thomas a few months ago, we thought that the subject of digital farming and making data work for your business might be interesting. I mean, it's quite a boring sort of subject line, and I appreciate data can be pretty dry, but hopefully we can bring it to life a little bit. Introducing myself. There we go. I'm a farmer's son. We farm over here. This is East Anglia here, for those that don't recognise it. So we're on the Breckland sands, sand over chalk. Some quite light land, boys' land, if you want to call it that. Where amongst other things, and we're doing irrigated veg is what we do. We have a small online presence from a branding perspective because we do asparagus as well. And the farm is run by my brother Will here on the right, who's taken over the reins from my father Tim a couple of years back, and yeah, is doing an incredibly good job of steering the family farm through what is quite a challenging time. Myself, I went to Durham University. I actually also then did a postgrad certificate at Harper because I did the MDS scheme. For those that don't know it, it's a scheme that's it's a grad scheme, 2-year scheme, and you do 6-month placements. So 4 placements, therefore, across different companies within predominantly the fresh produce industry, but they have stretched it out a little bit more, and there's various different companies you can work with there. I worked with Cobry Farms, big asparagus growers over in Herefordshire, Flamingo, who are exotic veg and flower importers, predominantly out of Africa into the UK retailers. Greenvale, the big spud company, and also for G's, who are a large salad and veg producer, whose headquarters are actually just near Ely over here, but they have farming, marketing, and business ventures all across the world. It was a fascinating company to work for, and I was fortunate to get a job out of MDS with G's, which saw me do a whole myriad of work with them, and I wound up looking after some of the retailers there. So managed the sales desk into Tesco's, which was quite interesting. But 5-6 years ago, left to start up my own little business with my business partner Gareth, called Yagro. But this evening we're talking a little bit about ag tech, the ag tech revolution, and digital farming, and all buzzwords like that. It's a very, very, very interesting time for farms, especially in the UK. There's a lot changing that is driving the system fairly hard. And so yes, the UK agricultural industry is is facing and going to face some of the most rapid change it has ever seen. Some is being driven financially, some is being driven from an ag tech perspective. But what do I mean by that ag tech perspective? It's these sorts of things that are popping up all over the place, whether they be, if I find my mouse, irrigation systems, sensors, robots, drones, marketplaces, data for animals, farm management software, precision this, precision that. There's a massive, massive, massive industry, tens of billions of pounds being invested into this space. But the important thing for any farm is the actual practicalities of implementation. And this is what I just want to touch on a little bit this evening, is as lovely as a lot of this information is, what does it genuinely mean for the person running the farm business? How is it actually going to make a difference? And can I even implement it? So we'll explore a little bit of that today. Within Yagro, what we have, and I guess this is in reality the need for any farm business, it's about decision making and making better decisions. And a lot of platforms out there at the moment, ours included for sure, profess to help you make a better decision. And it's all about data and using data and making the most of it and driving informed decisions. So I thought we'd explore that tonight, but actually I thought we'd actually just not actually focus on farms, but focus a little bit on a related part of the industry, which is the supermarkets. And I've split things down into factors that are within our control and out of our control. There's obviously 0 point wasting time trying to control things we have no control over. The focus needs to be on that is within our control. And what do I mean by that? So we've all been to supermarkets, I'm sure. So have a little think about the supermarket that you maybe go to, and some of the factors that determine the performance of that particular supermarket. Customers being an obvious one. Fickle, ever-changing, difficult to predict, helpful information about them for sure, but certainly a challenge to if one was running a supermarket. The stores, though, in terms of the actual space we have, or shelf space as the retailers call it, is absolutely manageable. It's and any retailer will be doing the same here. Is the space that think of perhaps the fresh produce aisle, the space that a tray occupies, how much margin is that tray space delivering back to the store, back to the company? Because if it's not delivering, then it goes and it changes. Underlying that then is the products that fill that space, be those brands, be those quality differentials. Those are important things for a supermarket to factor in. So to obviously is retail price. Now, a retailer obviously has control over its retail price to a certain extent, but actually the significant levels of competition out there mean that they can't charge £10 for a loaf of bread just because they can, because nobody would actually buy it. Furthermore, then there's the supplies and supply chain, the shopper demographic. So this is the type of shopper that exists around the supermarket that becomes the customer, and competition itself, of course, and then obviously the staff. Now, just moving you around so I can actually see. I've broken that down into the level of influence that the supermarket has on these different factors. Now, customers are absolutely uncontrollable. The retailer does not dictate how many people come into its shop tomorrow. Stores and shelf space, however, are fully within its control. So too would brands and quality of the particular products. Retail price, I've put both here. Yes, they've got complete control over that price, but as I said, you can't sell a loaf of bread for 10 quid because nobody would buy it. So there's an element of control, but there's an element of uncontrol as well. They have total control over the suppliers and the supply chain. They have no control. Whether a shopper demographic is neither controllable nor uncontrollable, but it is known. So it is known the type of shopper that would exist around in the proximity around a supermarket. They obviously have no control over their competition, and they have full control over their staff in a non-dictatorial manner, perhaps. But it is ultimately these factors that lead to the business performance and profitability of that supermarket. And what I thought would be worth exploring here is actually when we can think about a supermarket here and which is a space that we all go to and frequent, think about that actually then within a farming context and put some similarities and analogies between these. What I've just done here is actually just reordered these into a uncontrollable and controllable list here. So the uncontrollable customers and competition at the top. I've left staff down here at the bottom because we're not talking about staff and data on staff from a data perspective this evening. And then I thought, well, actually, we'd lay out what are the factors that are similar to those in a supermarket that a farming business has to contend with. And the most similar thing I could actually find or to relate to a supermarket is from their customers from a farming perspective is actually the weather. We have absolutely no control over the weather, much like a supermarket has no control over their customers. Yes, we can try and understand the weather, we can try and predict the weather, like a supermarket can try and predict the buying patterns of their customers. They don't ultimately have any control over them, neither does a farm have control over the weather. Similarly, the competition aspect of a supermarket is completely uncontrollable. Tesco's has a store, Aldi pop up one opposite. Tesco's have no control over that whatsoever. But similarly, a farming business has no control over legislative change, Brexit, currencies, etc. But these factors don't generally change overly rapidly. We have been talking about Brexit for 4 years. We know something's coming. We don't necessarily know what exactly, but it's still uncontrollable. But as we get closer to it, our understanding of it develops and continues. My thoughts on stores and shelf space, the equivalent for that for a farm business is actually a farm and perhaps their fields. How do you get a field operating as productively as possible? Much the same as how does a tray of produce in the fresh produce aisle of a supermarket operate as productively as possible? Similarly to them from a products and a brand's perspective, that's actually crops and varieties. We have total choice over the varieties of the crops that we grow, and so too does a shop have control over their brands and their products. Similarly, the suppliers, the supply chain, and what I've put here is in programs, and by that I mean sort of agronomic programs here, are indeed absolutely controllable from a farming business perspective. Now, interesting, perhaps a bit of debate around this next one, but I've actually put the grain market within here. So it is uncontrollable in that we don't know what the grain market is going to do tomorrow, next week, next year. But to a certain extent, we have an element of control as to when we sell. So it is both a controllable and uncontrollable feature, much like the retail price within a retailer. The shopper demographic then, a similar analogy I've got from a farming perspective there is actually the soil type. We don't choose the demographic. A retailer doesn't choose the demographic of the shopper that surrounds it. A farm doesn't choose their soil type, but it is known. And you can therefore do appropriate things when you have that information. And of course, staff are staff. Now, furthermore, supermarkets then they can't control their customers, they can't control their competition, much like a farm can't control the weather or legislative change, Brexit, etc. So it's important to understand the implications that any change would have on one's business, but it's no point wasting any time worrying about it effectively. For a retailer, it's the cost of goods, as they call it. That is the metric that they have the most amount of control over. How do they get their cost of goods as low as possible such that they can have a retail price that attracts customers in? Indeed, from a farming perspective as well, cost of production, and by that I mean how much does it cost to produce a ton of wheat, for example. A farm has control over that, and can put steps in place to mitigate against the uncontrollable aspect of the weather. These then are the areas of focus, or should be the areas of focus, for both a farm and the supermarket. Now, on top of that, the supermarket has a head office and systems, software, and data analysts to help them out with this. And this is then where the opportunity then lies within farming businesses, because we don't have a head office ordinarily. But what we do have that a supermarket doesn't have is the possibility of a network of collaborative farms. The question then is, what do we genuinely have from a systems and a software and perspective? So from a farming business perspective, this is what needs to focus on. This then helps drive data and information. Data and information allows for informed decisions, and informed decisions allow for driving of business performance and profitability. This all is underpinned by data. So we're going back to that original slide that we were looking through. What information actually is out there, and how do you interpret and implement that information so that you can make a fundamentally more informed decision and drive business profitability? So it comes back to that guiding question of, how can I make sure my next decision yields the best result for my farm business? It's a question of how. The challenge that exists within agriculture at the minute, that the ag tech revolution is trying to facilitate and trying to help, is the fact that data is all over the place. Nobody's got the tools and nobody's got the time, and very few in UK agriculture for sure are data analysts. But if we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty of things, we've got to be able to do that, or know someone that can, or something that can, to get the value out of it. We've tried to answer part of this question at Yagro. We have the ability to ingest and analyze and interpret a lot of information from farms in an automatic manner that performs the role of the data analyst for a farm. It saves them time, but it gives them the insight they need. And it'd be great to show you a little bit of the system and of the platform as we go through things this evening. What we have spent a lot of time building, and we've got an in-house tech team that has helped us with this, is how do you take in information that already exists? And by already existing, I mean information from farm management software, so a Gatekeeper or a Muddy Boots or a Pair Agri or Geofolia, for example, that we have to keep on farm from a legislative point of view. So those years of this data and information, how do you couple that with invoices, yields, bills of sales, etc.? And how do you drive insight and information and analysis out of that information? Well, you can do it manually for sure, and you'll be here for years. What we've done is built a data ingestion engine. Now, if there's one thing I've learned over the last 5 years of working in tech and ag tech, is always approach with caution when asking a tech team to name something, because they'll tell you exactly what it does on the tin. So this is our data ingestion engine. It ingests information and it does it automatically. Hasn't got a sexy fun name, and it is rather morbidly abbreviated to DIE internally, but it's an effective bit of kit. And what this allows us to do is take in multiple years worth of information from a farm automatically, structure and organize that information, and run analytics off the back. So for example, here, pretending to be my family farm here, WOMPO Jolly, this could be 5 years worth of our information, a simple drag and drop in here, a click and process, and algorithms and facilitated machine learning in the background structure and organize that information so that you can actually do something with it. And when you've got data and you can get order from it, you turn chaos into order and data into insight, and that then becomes quite powerful when that's implemented on farm. But you might think, crikey, sounds like a long-winded process. From a farm's perspective, it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes work pulling the information that already exists, that we're not currently doing anything with on farm because it's too clunky, too difficult, and all in different languages. And our system takes a week to structure and organize that information and turn something out the back of it. But question is, what does it turn out the back? And we'll switch to a quick demo. Now I've actually got to go onto our live demo platform here, so bear with. I need to stop sharing my screen and then we'll start sharing it again in a second. Hopefully now everybody can see this. So we are on here, the Yagro platform. We're under the mythical home farm. And what we're looking at here is what we hope to be, and we've been guided by 15 farms across the country for the last, well, basically 2 years now in the building of all of this. What we hope to have here is a system that allows a farm to not only explore their own information and their own performance versus the market, but also understand how and why they might make some changes to drive performance of their business. So very much like we were looking at in the analogy against the supermarket, how do we understand our cost of production? How do we actually do something with it that is going to make a fundamental improvement to the business? What I mean by that then is the data that exists to enable you to explore your business. So if we all imagine that we are the farm manager or the owner, whatever you want, of home farm, and we're trying to understand our performance, now split by crop. Now we focus on arable cropping here. So arable and veg, we've just got examples here of combinables, but already do veg as well. Very interested to hear of people's thoughts and on how it might be used in other areas of the industry. We've started with on the arable side of things, partly because it's my background, and we know a little bit about it, and partly because all of those farms that have been helping us are all predominantly arable farms. But what you've got here is 5 years worth of information for a farm. And what we're looking at is the cost of production per ton. Now we've started with the variable spend. One's variable spend is obviously made up of the spend per hectare divided by the yield. And it's understanding how your cost of production per ton variable spend fits on a crop by crop basis against a market range. So some would call this benchmarking. We call it analytics because it goes a whole lot deeper than benchmarking itself. There's 5 years worth of information in here, so you can just simply flick and click between the years, no problems when my internet works. And it's a case of understanding where to focus one's effort, because there's definitely going to be things that are going right on farm. For example, here the winter barley, where the performance of 41 pounds per ton is some of the best out there. And there's definitely going to be areas where there's opportunities for improving. So thinking about that supermarket analogy again, then perhaps the alcohol aisle is going swimmingly and performing really, really well. Perhaps the fresh produce aisle could do with an improvement. It's a case of how and where do you improve. So in this example here, a cost of production per ton of 53.45 on winter wheat. Rain is on a range of 35 to 58. So there's 18 pounds worth of £18 per ton's worth of investigation to have a look at. £18 per ton is obviously 10% in today's market, roughly. But you want to dig into the details then of winter wheat. He says, as his system has a heart failure. And we're back in the room. So we've dug into the detail here of winter wheat. Now there's simple information in here for a farm in terms of numbers of fields, etc. Here is the historical performance of this farm, overlaid against the market average in the background. So they can see not only how they're producing in this current year, but how it has gone in the past, and can then investigate on a year-by-year basis. The 53.45 pounds per ton is split into either the cost of production per ton on seeds, ferts, and sprays. Now that is then set against the market range as well. So we were exploring 18 pounds per ton's worth of opportunity here. We can actually break that down into seeds, ferts, and sprays and understand where the performance is within there. There's 14 pounds per ton's worth of opportunity on chemicals, and we won't want to blow out chemistry to have a little look to see exactly where within the chemistry setup we need to focus. That's one way of looking at and exploring one's cost of production per ton here. Another way is actually then looking at things from a varietal perspective. So understanding the varieties that have grown of winter wheat on this farm in this year, the cost of production per ton for each of those. Now, if the farm is selling all of these into the same market and therefore getting the same price for them, well, therefore then their basset is negatively contributing by £8 per ton versus their siskin. So part of this is about how do you drive performance? Well, partly it's on varietal choice. We're growing 142 hectares of basset here. We're only growing 62 hectares of siskin. If the weighting of these was different, you'd have a different cost of production per ton here. Obviously, the lower cost of production per ton, the better. So let's say, for example, the market is 180 quid. You're trying to get a maximum margin. Another way of looking at things, though, is to dig into the level of detail of a variety. So here, the history is narrowed because this farm's only been growing illicit for 2 years. Indeed, the market range has also narrowed, so that we're only looking at illicit versus illicit here. The cost of production is still split by the seeds, ferts, and sprays, but again, the market range has narrowed to illicit. So we're looking at illicit versus illicit for 2020. We're getting to get an even deeper understanding now as to how and where we can drive performance on the farm. And when you blow out chemistry, it's a slightly different look. The markers are here actually all mostly on the top end of things. Interesting, perhaps. We'll try and get into a little bit more detail and actually look at things at a field by field level now. So we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the data, and as a result, finding greater and greater levels of value. Because here, these are all the different fields that this farm has grown of illicit in 2020, where their cost of production per ton ranges from 39 or 40 pounds per ton to 64. Quite the range. The challenge we have on farm at the moment, because there's so much data available and it's just so difficult to remember stuff, we tend to focus on this one here, yield. And the yield of Slade field is 10 tons per hectare. Interestingly, the yield on the butts is 10 tonne a hectare as well. And what we will generally remember on farm is that, yes, Slade field is the same as the butts, isn't it? Not quite, because it costs £400 a hectare to get here, and it costs £653 a hectare to get here. So with the same variety on the same farm in the same year, massive spread here. What the reason for data and the analysis of data is to bring confidence to decisions, and or the confidence to do something different. So you might continue to do the same thing here on Slade field. We might look to do something different here on the butts. The question is, what can you do differently? We're actually going to use Bricktop as a pretty average field here in the middle to explore. Pretty punchy yield in here as well. Problem being it's actually negatively contributing from a cost of production perspective. And we look at here the range now. You can't go any lower than Bricktop. Field level is the lowest level that we can control on farm sensibly at the moment. In time, for sure, things will get to the square meter level, but tangibly at the moment, in terms of actually making a difference on the farm, it's field level operations that we have control over. So here it's a case of understanding one's performance against others on the different factors that make up the total cost per hectare that has an influence on the yield that obviously dictates the cost production per ton. And your eye is probably going to be drawn to a number of different areas where the marker is at the top, or the bigger ticket items as well. Here, for example, the fungicide spend of £209 per hectare. Not the cheapest, not the most expensive, relatively toppy, but it's an understanding the fact that this in this particular variety in this particular year has actually cost the farm nearly £10 per ton. Not insignificant. The question is, what do you do about it? And the thing with this is this £209 per hectare is made up of three things and three things only. The product that the farm has used, the rate at which they've used it, and the price they've paid for it. So then you've got to break that down, because how do you improve that? I don't know. Is it a case of applying less because your prices are good? Or is it a case of applying the same amount because your prices are bad? Or is it the product choice? What is it? You've got to break that down. And by ingesting the level of information that we do at the level of detail that we do, we can actually do something about that. So what I'm going to do here is click on this button here, and we're gonna just flip to a slightly different part of the platform. Now, we're still in Bricktop, we're still in illicit, we're still in winter wheat, and we're still in the same farm, we're still in 2020. But what we're doing now is analyzing the program. And by analyzing the program, I mean we're looking at the rates that have been used on this farm and how they compare to the market median. Critically, not the minimum, but the median. We give everything the same reference cost. So regardless of what the farm has paid for their illicit seed, or regardless of the fact that it's home saved or whatever, everybody's illicit seed has been priced at 46 pence per kilo. And what that means is we can do the analytics between this rate and this rate. And the maths here are suggesting that by this farm, I'm doing 200 kilos a hectare against a market median of 161. They're costing themselves £17 or £18 per hectare. It's definitely not telling the farm, stop doing this, start doing this. It's telling the farm, by doing this, where the market median is doing that, you have an opportunity, a potential savings opportunity of £18 a hectare. Might not sound like a huge amount, but that's the case across seed, fertilizer, and chemistry. Quite a lot here in chemistry, probably worth exploring. And we found out on the previous page that we're at that it was actually the fungicide spend that was what was most interesting to have a look at. So let's blur out the detail here. And now we're looking at the rate of active ingredient, not brand, active ingredient the farm has applied. 200 grams per hectare of azoxystrobin against a market median of 85 with a reference cost of 7 pence per gram means there's an opportunity of £8 per hectare on this active ingredient alone. Now your eyes are probably going to be drawn to here. Nearly £50 a hectare's worth of opportunity. It seems like quite a lot of prothioconazole going on. Now from both an environmental aspect and a financial aspect, might want to have a little look at that. Might want to have a discussion with one's agronomist. Is this the right approach? Is this fungicide plan delivering what the business needs for Bricktop? Farm can't remember what they put on for their prothioconazole. No problems, just click it and it will tell you. The important thing then is not only working at the field level here, where this field is 9 grams worth of opportunity, but actually navigating back up to the top because you need to find out where the lowest hanging fruit is. So we navigate up and we're just looking at illicit now. And there's £20,000 worth of opportunity purely on rates with illicit. You can navigate up to the wheat level and we're £31,000 worth of opportunity here. Or you can navigate up to the total farm level and £60,000 worth of opportunity in 1 year alone, split by this across these crops, when you're purely looking at rate. The other thing to then look at is price. So rates is one of the levers that can be pulled and pushed to drive performance of this business. So too perhaps is price. And when we look at price, we have a slightly different tool that we call, funnily enough, price check. And if I switch to a different season here to get a more appropriate graph, in the spring of 2019, this farm bought £207,000 worth of chemistry. They sent 7,000 back, so they have a net spend of 200,000 compared to 196 the year before. Now, analysing their purchasing performance, they got a score of 6.9 out of 10. 10 out of 10 is the best, 1 out of 10 is the worst. 10 out of 96 of the products that they bought are exclusive products, i.e. they're only supplied by the supplier that they bought from. Also worth investigating. But across the 96 products that they bought in the spring of 2019, their buying profile, as we call it, is split like this. There's 33 products that they're buying at market price. There's 13 products where there's up to 5% savings, 5 to 10% savings, 10 to 15% savings, 15% plus savings. Now, think back to that retailer and that supermarket example here. If you knew actually that the beer you were buying, you were paying 15% more than you really needed to, well, that's eating 15% into your margins, not an insignificant amount of money. And indeed, if this farm wraps up all of this value here, and if they'd have bought everything at the market best price, that would have saved them 16 grand. Now, that's helpful stuff, but you need to know where. You need to get into the nitty gritty. No problems. Just look at it on a product by product basis. And what we're looking at here is the fact that the farm bought £1,400, £1,500 worth of 3-cyclomaquat. They paid nearly 30% more than they needed to on this one. So there's a savings opportunity of 320 quid on this one. They want to get into the detail of, they paid 196 last year. They're not going to pay that next year because they know the market's 152. We can then dig into the detail of different brands as well and different saving opportunities for different products. Final example on here, because you've got to try and find the lowest hanging fruit. Synconil, here we go. CTL, less relevant now because of it's been ruled out for use on farm. But if this farmer is then buying that in the subsequent year, they perhaps wouldn't buy this brand at £5.95. They'd perhaps buy this one at £4.65, or this one at £5.30. And these are the levels of savings that they can achieve as a result. Similarly here, Clean Crop Celeb, an interesting example here. This is an azoxystrobin, so the one we looked at the rates, where the rates were high. Hang on a second, my price is also high. How much is it high? It's high by 10%, or 250 quid, or nearly £1,000 if I bought a different product that is the same concentration of the same active ingredient. So the important things with farms, the important things with supermarkets is exactly the same. It's about understanding the cost makeup and what you can do about it to drive better business decisions and better business performance. But we totally realize that actually this is just data. Data's data. You could do this, put it in a drawer, a virtual drawer, obviously, not do anything about it, and your business isn't going to achieve anything. You have to drive performance here, and actually some of the best ways of doing that on farm, especially within the UK, is by working with other farms. So we created a concept called virtual groups. Now, this takes a little while to load because of the complexity that sits behind it. But here, this farm here has chosen to work with other farms that it knows and trusts because it's trying to drive peer-to-peer learning. So if I think back to my uni days there and doing plant science at Durham, I'd have certainly teamed up with other guys also doing plant science, because if there was something that my friend John understood that I didn't, well, he could teach me and hopefully I could teach him something back as well. This is exactly the same principle here, but we're talking about performance of businesses. So Home Farm here has created a virtual group, as we call it, with A&B Farming, FG Estates, and CDE Farm Partnership. And here they're understanding their individual cost makeup. Here is the 5345 from Home Farm, where they're definitely going to have a conversation with CDE Farm Partnerships because they're producing it for considerably less pounds per ton. Is it a yield thing? No. Is it a fungicide thing, which is something that we wanted to focus on when we were looking through as Home Farm? Quite possibly. Definitely. Actually, I'm going to speak to A&B Farming. So it's a case of understanding understanding one's performance and how to drive that, because ultimately within agriculture, we have to get these costs of production per ton lower. The reason we have to get it lower, if I just flick back to my slide here. The reason we have to get it lower is because there's so much uncertainty that we don't have control over. So the more control that we have over this, the better. Further to that though, getting those informed decisions and better business performance, one thing that's making it even harder is the fact that BPS is going. Now, you guys all know this far better than I am, and no doubt you're studying it to the nth degree. But if we ask ourselves as a farm, do I need to make more profit than I'm making now? Yep. Because BPS is going down to 0. Now, in theory, ELMS comes in and rescues the day, or something similar. But considering the fact that the government have just injected another £150 billion worth of funds into the economy as a coronavirus rescue package, it wouldn't surprise me if both the ELMS pot of money came under attack. Same BPS. You could get something like that happening, where BPS gets cut off far quicker than we're led to believe at the moment, and ELMS doesn't quite deliver what it's meant to. But fundamentally, as farms and as an industry, we need to have an industry that can stand up on its own 2 feet and not rely on support. That's £230 a hectare. That's from an arable farming's perspective. That's about 20% of your inputs from a variable and labor and machinery. And that's not very easy to improve a business by 20% in less than 5 years. The industry hasn't had that level of challenge on it for generations. And all of a sudden, we've got to do something about it. This is where the ag tech revolution is coming through, but only where the revolution that's coming and the technology that's coming actually makes a difference. This is where we see farms are telling us that the virtual groups concept, by facilitating farms working together, you get better farms out the back of it, and £230 a hectare starts to become achievable. So the ag tech revolution, industry is facing some of its most rapid change it's ever seen. And I guess I'm reaching out to you guys because you guys are the next generation coming through into this. The industry is absolutely desperate for people to help drive it forward. If we don't, then there's a bit of a train crash coming. So we've got a choice. We can either sit back and hope for the best, or we can try to do something about it and drive some much needed change. So spread the word. Come join the team if you want to. Definitely don't just sit there and watch. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. It's really interesting to have a look through the platform. I think I wasn't quite sure what to expect that it would be, but it goes into quite a lot of detail, and I imagine you're working to get into even more and more detail kind of every time, aren't you? And what you said, you mentioned you're kind of trying to get down to the square meters and things. So I think, especially with yield mapping and things, it's going to really help with all that side of things. We did have a question come in, which I feel you've kind of answered already, with the sharing, farm sharing bit. But it's just saying, do you facilitate data sharing between farms? Does the software operate on crop data?
Yes and yes, I think is the.
Dan, I think that's been very clearly answered. So thanks for that. Can I swap to my next question, if that's okay?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us about the kind of the shareholders, kind of the backing, the funding side of things?
Of the business itself?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we as a business, we're now, as I said, 5-6 years old, slightly lost track of time. We're privately owned, so we have private investors as backers. We've done 2 small rounds of investment, but probably our most significant backer is actually the UK government. So we picked up a grant from Innovate UK and it came out of their driving productivity on farm pot of money, because we do exactly that. And since launching Yagro Analytics in September of this year, there's now just over 80,000 hectares worth of farming, and their farms driving value out of it. So if that answers your question, the UK government is giving us a good push.
Thank you for that.
Joe, you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask something?
Yes, thanks, Thomas. That was really interesting, Dan. I thought, there's a lot of opportunity there. Just speaking as a dairy farmer, have you got any plans for expanding this into different? I know you touched on it at the start, but any plans to go elsewhere?
Yes, grand plans. I guess the principles of the platform itself are inherently transferable to many areas of the industry, be that fruit farming, dairy farming, poultry, etc. Because the principles are throw data at a platform, get insight and analytics out the back of it. There's a few more complicated things that sit under the hood of that for sure, but actually, interestingly, that the livestock industry has, as I've understood, and you'll know better than us, quite a lot of information already that is perhaps sitting there waiting to be used. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts as well. Don't know, should we take it into the livestock industry?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think it's a brilliant piece of software. It's just as a second question, a bit of a cheeky question, but will you be interested in placement students at all, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we actually had a number of interns over this summer just gone. Yes, always interested in bright, driven people that want to help us take the business forward.
Thank you, Dan.
I can, Dan, if you're happy, I can pass on your contact details to Joe if you'd like, and then
please do. Yeah,
you can get in touch that way.
Yeah.
So drop me a message, Joe, and then remind me, and I'll ping that over to you. Do we have any other questions? We seem. And feel free to any comments or feedback from anyone. Feel free to use the chat box if you haven't got a microphone or anything. I'm sure Dan would be more than happy to help. I was just sat there thinking of Dad at home, thinking how he'd love to just spend some hours, plotting through, reading all of this data and just like going apart field by field and crop by crop. So I think I'm gonna have to send him this presentation afterwards to see if we can get him on board.
It's interesting because it's definitely not some people's bag, but there's experts out there that within the industry already where it absolutely is their bag. So whether it be an advisor on farm or what, we all have to play to our strengths. And if I think of my father, for example, he's a real grower. He's a real scientist. My brother's an engineer, and they play to their strengths on the farm at home. I quite like data, and so the combination thereof is pretty powerful.
Mm. One thing which you mentioned, kind of the where you'd have two fields both yielding say 10 tons or per hectare, whatever, but then when you actually, you take that as face value and you think, oh, that's great, and doing it right, but when you realize one's costing you far more than the other, it's probably something people aren't really realizing, because you pay that one seed bill or that one fertilizer bill, but when you actually attribute it to the different areas of the business,
it plays to Pareto's law, so the 80-20 rule, where you can get 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort or the detail. But to get to that last 20%, you need the remaining 80%'s worth of digging into the nitty-gritty. It's the marginal gains concept. It's the team sky cycling concept. It's as farms in the UK, we have such a massive hurdle to get over in such a short space of time. That the belief that there'll be a white knight coming over the hill and saving the business, and I'll be able to click my fingers and make a quick change and make 20% worth of improvements. No, because you've made all of those already. What is round the corner is the need to make 21% improvements across the business. And that then adds up. But we certainly can't do it all alone. And that's the principles around the virtual group, is to bring like-minded farms together to help drive performance.
Just got a couple of questions coming in on the question answer. Someone just saying, could you talk through some of the revenue model? Is 100% of the revenues based on subscriptions?
Yes, is the short answer to that. We don't sell data. We have a very clear data policy. It's we only work for farms, which is quite weirdly unique within the industry. So farms are our supporters. Farms are our customers. We have the subscription model exists on the Yagro analytics. We have a B2B marketplace as well, where for buying and selling, and that's actually free for farms. And we have a tiny success-based commission on the supply side, but that's a slightly different, a slightly different product, effectively. But yes, it's subscription-based. No adverts. And you'll be pleased to hear.
Ad-free. That's great. Just another question: is the software on the market for use now? Which I think it is.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. We launched this in. Yeah. Launched it in September, and even though it's been an incredibly challenging autumn on farm from a weather perspective, we've been thoroughly enthused by the farms that are wanting to take things forward, join up, and really get going on this. And interestingly, nearly every farm that has joined has also said, well open for a virtual group. If there's other farms in my areas that want to, then yep, tell them I'm up for it. Which is a far cry from where we've been in the past as an industry, where it's been an incredibly closed shop, and there's no way I'm going to share my secret sauce with anybody. Those days are gone. Those days have to go. You can do it by yourself if you want to, but by God, it's a far harder climb.
So you're based in East Anglia and things. You're the ones which kind of signed up. Are they kind of in the East Anglia area, or is there quite a wide geographical spread? What sort of area?
We're all over. So we've got farms in Cornwall, Devon, Kent, the Highlands of Scotland, all over. We have a stronger collection of farms down the east, for that is where the vast majority of arable farming is done. But yeah, we've got farms all over the place and of all shapes and sizes as well. So on the steering group, that is a group of farms that have been helping us shape and define this, and if I'm being honest, kicked us to pieces over the last 2 years, telling us what they want, and we try and build things, and they tell us it's not good enough, and so we go away and build something else. And they've been an incredibly helpful guiding group of farms. They range from small family farm, sort of 200 hectares type job, all the way through to tens of thousands of acres of multi-site farming. Interestingly, they've all got the same problem.
Yeah, they all find common issue amongst them, and they're trying to find a way to a solution for it.
Everybody's trying to drive the productivity of every single acre. You can have 1 acre, you can have 100,000 acres. The challenge is exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, someone's got their hand up. Feel free to go, or is it an old hand?
Okay. Hi, Dan. I just wanted to ask about the graph that you've showed us, and you've shown us that 5 years. I think it's a 5 years. 5 years, yeah, 5 years one. And if someone wants to buy the software, do they have to enter all their data and the expenditure and everything of their 5 years to get the benchmark, or how does it work?
So a farm will generally has all of the information that we require to run the analytics. They already have that. So the historic 5-year position for a farm, for example, every farm has to record what they're doing on a field by field basis because of legislative purposes. Okay, that's normally stored within a gatekeeper or a muddy boots or something similar. They also have all of the invoices that relate to the products that they have purchased, and they also have all of their yields. Now, some farms have their yields on a field by field basis because they're putting tractors and trailers over weighbridges and recording things in that manner. Other farms, their only record of yield is what they sold. It's obviously pretty accurate when it's a sold yield as well. So all of this information already exists on farm. The challenge that exists within the industry is that it's all in different places, in different formats. Some's on a spreadsheet, some's with the accountant, some's on farm management software, etc. What we do is automatically pull it all together and give them the insight that they need out the back of it.
Yeah, so they've kind of already got it, and it's just bringing it from various different locations into one uniformed approach.
Yep.
Which is probably quite useful.
Certainly saves a lot
does
of time.
anybody? Yeah, and I suppose it's in, it's in, and then you just add 1 year at a time following.
It was a one of the key things that the steering group said to us. They said they all said we've got too much data in too many places. None of it talks to each other, and we don't have the time or the tools or the expertise to get any value out of it. But we know there's value in there. And so they said, build us a system that answers that. But they said, build us a system where we don't have to manually enter anything. The latter is the really difficult bit.
Yeah.
You could have built this really easily and just asked the farm, oh, please take your data and manually enter into this, but nobody would have done it. And the level of data that we take through when a farm runs 5 years worth of information from their gatekeeper, for example, is tens of thousands of lines of data. If you want to enter it manually, you can. But that's why we built the system, to do it automatically.
Thank you.
Yeah. Saves a lot of time, which is probably the whole point behind it. Brilliant. Does anybody have any final points? If not, I just want to big thank you to Dan for your time this evening. been really interesting, and I'm definitely going to recommend this to quite a few people to go back and watch and hear about it, because I think it's a big lesson which people can learn. And they've got all the data, so rather than having it sat in boxes in the office or in the garage, might as well get something out of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. That was really useful.
No,
Really interesting.
great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so
Anytime.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.